You wake up hungry. It's just before dawn, 90,000 years ago, and the fire from last night is down to embers. There's no food where you slept. Nobody is bringing you any. Whatever you eat today, someone in this camp has to go out and find first. So here's the only question that really matters this morning. Where is breakfast? Now, you probably already have a picture in your head of how this goes. A man with a spear, a mammoth, a great slab of red meat over the flames, and everybody tearing into it with their hands. Hold on to that picture, because we're going to take it apart. Almost everything in it is wrong. The all-meat caveman is one of the stickiest ideas we have about the past. It's on book covers, it's in cartoons, there's an entire diet industry built on top of it. Eat like a caveman, the story goes, and that means meat, meat, and more meat. But when researchers went and looked at people who still live this way, hunting and gathering their own food, the plate looked completely different. In warm climates, most of what actually gets eaten day in and day out doesn't come from hunting at all. It comes from gathering. Take the Hadza in northern Tanzania. They've been studied for decades, and their food year is built on a handful of things you'd never guess. Tubers dug out of hard ground. Baobab fruit pounded into a sour, chalky flour. Berries. Nuts and honey. Start with the tubers, because they're the least glamorous and the most important. Underground, tough, fibrous, not especially tasty. But they're there in the dry season when nothing else is, and they don't run away from you. Somebody in your camp is carrying a fire-hardened digging stick, and that stick feeds more people than the spear does. Then the good stuff. Baobab pods you crack open and pound. Berries by the handful in season. And at the top of the list, the food that beats everything else, honey. Ancient humans were obsessed with honey. It's pure, dense energy in a world where energy is the whole game. And getting it involves one of the strangest partnerships on Earth. There is a bird, the greater honey guide. It knows where the bee nests are, and it wants the wax, but it can't get inside. So it finds people. It calls, it flits ahead, it waits for you to follow. Humans call back with a whistle or a grunt that's been passed down for generations. The bird leads. You do the dangerous part with smoke and an axe. Then you leave the comb behind for it. A wild animal and a human running a business together for who knows how many thousands of years. So where does the meat go in all this? It's real. It matters enormously. It's just nothing like the picture. Here's the part that never makes it onto the book cover. Hunting fails. Constantly. Among the Hadza, a hunter can go out day after day and come back with nothing at all. Big animals are killed on only a tiny fraction of hunting days. If your family ate only what you personally speared, your family would be in serious trouble. Which is exactly why nobody's family ate that way. When a large animal does come down, it is far too much meat for one person, and there's no way to keep it. So it goes out. To everyone. The hunter doesn't own it, and often gets no special share at all. And this isn't sweetness, it's arithmetic. You will fail for 2 weeks straight, and in those 2 weeks, somebody else will get lucky. Sharing turns one person's rare good day into everybody's steady supply. It's the oldest insurance policy in the world, and the premium is paid in meat. So the picture flips. Not a lone hunter feeding his family. A whole camp, most of it gathered by women and older children, pooled and handed around, with meat arriving as the occasional glorious bonus. And when it does arrive, it really is glorious. A big kill is a party. Everyone eats until they physically can't. There's fat, which is prized far above lean meat, and marrow cracked out of the bones. People gorge because tomorrow there might be nothing. because I'm not going to pretend this was some endless picnic. There were hard seasons. There were stretches where the berries were gone and the animals had moved and everyone was living on tough roots and getting thinner. Lean months were real. But that's a very different thing from the other myth, the one where ancient life is a permanent, desperate famine. It wasn't. It was feast and lean, over and over, with a huge amount of knowledge in between keeping people alive. Now, some of you are thinking, fine, but they were still eating raw scraps off the ground. No cooking, no processing, no actual meals. And that's where the dirt has a surprise for us. Fire changes everything. Cooked food gives up far more of its energy than raw food does, and it takes far less chewing to get it. Some researchers argue this was the single change that let our ancestors' bodies and brains grow the way they did, though exactly when we started cooking regularly is still being argued about. But cooking is only half of it. They were processing food in ways that sound almost modern. Archaeologists have found grinding stones, roughly 30,000 years old, from sites in Italy, Russia, and the Czech Republic, with plant starch still stuck to the surface. They were grinding roots and seeds into flour. Flour. 20,000 years before anybody planted a field. And it gets better. At a site in Jordan called Shubaika, researchers found charred crumbs of something flat and baked. 14,400 years old. Bread. Made by hunter-gatherers thousands of years before farming existed. Somebody ground wild grain, mixed it with water, and put it on a hot stone. That's a recipe. This is the opposite of scraps. There's a Neanderthal detail I love too. Scrape the hardened plaque off their teeth and you find plant starch grains, and some of them are cooked. They were eating prepared plant food, and it's still stuck in their teeth for us to find. So the real ancient diet isn't a slab of meat. It's dozens and dozens of plant species, most of which you have never eaten and could not name. Tubers, seeds, fruits, greens, nuts, honey, insects, eggs, fish, and yes, meat when meat happened. Wildly varied, deeply seasonal, and every single item of it something that a person had to know how to find. So if the food was that varied, and they were cooking, grinding, and baking, what actually changed? Because something obviously did. Here it is. It isn't really what we eat. It's that food used to be the thing that held everyone together. Getting it was a group effort. Sharing it wasn't generosity, it was the rule. And eating it was the moment the whole camp came back to one fire. That's the part we quietly dropped. We solved the finding, we solved the storing, we solved the hunger, mostly. And somewhere in there, eating turned into a thing you do alone, with one hand, looking at something else. That fire you woke up next to at the start, with the embers going and everybody hungry, that's still running underneath all of it. Every meal you've ever loved was a shared one. That's not a coincidence. That's inheritance. We are the descendants of the ones who came back and put the food in the middle. So I'm curious what you make of this one. What's the oldest food you know of that people still make more or less the same way? And if this changed how the inside of your fridge looks to you, there's a whole series here doing the same thing to the rest of your everyday life.